The Stranger Things podcast, episode number 5, The Flea and the Acrobat.
Dustin, what are you doing? Dustin! Dustin!
I need to see your compasses.
What?
Your compasses, all of your compasses, right now!
What's exciting about this?
Well, they're all facing north, right?
Yeah, so?
Well, that's not true north.
What do you mean?
I mean exactly what I just said. That's not true north. Are you both seriously this dense? The sun rises in the east, and it sets in the west, right? Which means that's true north.
So what you're saying is the compasses are broken?
Do you even understand how a compass works? Do you see a battery pack on this?
No.
No, you don't, because it doesn't need one. The needle's naturally drawn to the Earth's magnetic North Pole.
So, what's wrong with him?
Well, that's what I couldn't figure out, but then I remembered. You can change the direction of a compass with a magnet. If there's the presence of a more powerful magnetic field, the needle deflects to that power. And then I remembered what Mr. Clarke said. The gate would have so much power.
Disrupt the electromagnetic field.
Exactly.
Meaning, if we follow the compasses north?
They should lead us to the gate.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Stranger Things podcast. I'm Daryl.
And I'm Addie.
How are you today?
Kind of a little wet.
You just took a big drink there while I was doing the intro, and I'm not sure if any of that got into your mouth.
It did.
Okay, good. I'm glad it wasn't a total waste of effort. Nice to have you back in studio. Nice to have you home from camp. Do you wish you were still at camp?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm glad that you really enjoy going and that you have a good time while you're there.
I hated the car ride back because I felt sick the entire time.
Yeah, it's a long car ride. It was like 6 hours.
Yeah. I mean, at least I was with Mia.
Yeah.
If she's listening to this. Love you.
Hi, Mia. Well, we are glad that you decided to push that play button and listen to our podcast today. We've had a lot of fun putting these episodes together, and hopefully you've had a lot of fun listening to them. Today, of course, we're talking about Chapter 5 of Season 1 of Stranger Things, entitled
The Flea and the Acrobat.
That's right. Addie, give us the deets on this episode.
It's written by Allison Tatlock and directed by the Duffer Brothers.
The Duffer Brothers, who are they?
They're the directors of Stranger Things.
Oh, how are they connected?
They're brothers.
Oh, I think you might be onto something there. I gotta tell you, this might be my favorite episode so far. When you left for camp, okay, we recorded episode 4, and I said...
I know you watched it right before I left, and you were like, no, you can't leave now, we can't talk about it.
I know, like you went to bed that night right after we recorded episode 4. I stayed up and watched episode 5, and then it was so good. I live tweeted while I watched it, by the way, which is something I'm going to try to do as I watch the rest of the episodes, although by the time you hear this episode, I've already seen them all. We'll talk more about that before we get out of here today. But anyway, loved it so much. I was tweeting about it and watching it, really, really enjoying it. But I asked you before you left the room to go to bed, I said, give me something I can expect about this episode. Give me a little something that I can
Didn't I say
post
something
online.
about, like, it's informational?
Yeah, I'm actually pulling it up because I actually posted it to our Facebook page. I'm not sure if I tweeted it or not, but I put it out there on the Facebook page. Actually, I'm wrong. It was on Twitter I put it, not Facebook. You said that episode 5 is very important. I agree. And you get a lot more information. I can't wait to find out. Well, you were right. Very important episode. Lots of information. And it just gave me all the vibes of one of my other favorite shows of all time, which I will talk about as we go through this. So I don't know. I really loved this episode. Really liked it a lot.
Other favorite shows? No, you can't do that. It's only Stranger Things.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that. So let's talk about what's on our agenda for this episode. It's the same agenda as we always have, but in case you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're going to do an episode recap, which will be very short, and then we'll spend the majority of our time discussing the episode, what we liked, what we didn't like. What are we kidding? The things we didn't like. There's no such thing. We're going to take some... Actually, we're not going to have any listener feedback. We had no listener feedback sent in for this episode, so we
Thanks,
won't have
guys.
that. We'll do our quote of the week. We'll have the meme of the week.
Meme.
And we've got some Hawkins reports, some news to share with you, too, before we get out of here. So let's get it kicked off with the episode recap. Will's father, Lonnie, comes to town and convinces Joyce that she has imagined everything since Will's disappearance. Later, she discovers he's only interested in suing the company responsible for managing the quarry where Will's body was found, and she demands he leave. After Will's funeral, the boys ask Mr. Clarke about dimensions. He says that interdimensional travel is presently impossible for humans due to the amount of energy needed, but a space-time tear could create a gate for passage. Returning to Mike's basement, Dustin reveals to Mike and Lucas that if the gate was created, it would disrupt the electromagnetic field, throwing off compasses, and that by following their compasses, they should be able to find the gate. During the search, Elle remembers being weighed down in a sensory deprivation tank to relay information from a Russian spy, but while under, she comes across the creature. Scared of finding the gate, Elle directs the compasses away from the laboratory. When Lucas notices the distortion, he confronts her. Mike defends her, and a fight ensues between Mike and Lucas. Seeing this, Elle telekinetically flings Lucas off of Mike, but Lucas is knocked unconscious as a result. Once he has recovered, he storms off. Mike and Dustin notice that Elle is gone. After looking at Jonathan's photo of Barb, Nancy realizes the monster is also present in the photo. She is convinced that the monster is responsible for Barb's disappearance. Nancy and Jonathan decide to search for the creature on their own, using the Byers' house, Steve's house, and where they found Will's bike to triangulate the creature's position. While searching, Nancy and Jonathan find a wounded deer. As they prepare to kill it out of mercy, it is suddenly dragged away in the shadows. Upon following a trail of blood, Nancy comes across a fleshly portal in the base of a tree. She crawls through to the upside down, witnessing the creature feasting upon the deer. She tries to quietly flee, slowly walking backwards. She accidentally treads on a tendril, making noise and alerting the creature to her presence. The creature gives chase, and Nancy panics. Hearing her screams, Jonathan looks for her as the portal begins to seal up. All right, short and sweet this week. I think that's the shortest ever. One thing I forgot to do at the beginning of that is give a shout out to the great folks over at the wiki page for that. We're pulling the language for the recap from the Stranger Things fan wiki. You can find that over at strangerthings.wikia.com. It's a really great fan site. I love fan wikis. We've been podcasting about TV shows for 9 years now. Wow. Yeah, 9 years now. And fan wikis have always been a really important piece of the fandom and of our podcasts and all that stuff. So if you don't make visiting the fan wikis as part of your watching experience and listening to the podcast experience, I highly encourage you to go over there and check those out. Most popular TV shows have a fan wiki out there. So this one is strangerthings.wikia.com, and it's full of great stuff. All right, Addie, let's get back into the episode with our episode discussion.
All right.
Okay, so this week I think I've done a better job of organizing the notes in that I tried to kind of group them with the different scenes, piecing the scenes together to form a more cohesive discussion path rather than saying, okay, now we're back over here and then this scene, rather than breaking it down scene by scene, breaking it down kind of story by story.
Okay.
So let's talk first about Hopper the ninja.
So he gets into the what's it called, the lab.
Yeah.
He gets into the lab by waiting for two scientists to open the door, and then he sneaks around a little bit. He comes across two people They're like walking down the hall, and he like hides in a different room. So then after that, he like explores a little bit more, and they mentioned in an earlier episode whenever he wants to like search through the place. They were talking about how they have like a whole bunch of security cameras, and they would have seen like if anyone went in there. Mm-hmm. So whenever he gets to like this one room that has, you have to have like a card to get into it.
Right.
And then two people stop him, and they're like, "Did you forget about all the security cameras?" And he kind of plays it off like, "Oh, he asked for me." And they're like, "Okay, really, what's your name?" And he's like, "Jim Hopper." And whenever he is like on the radio or the walkie-talkie thingy, he knocks him out and gets the gun from the dude that he knocked out, and then he disarms the other dude and then steals his card and gets into the room. So yeah, and then he walks around a little bit more, and he comes across a room that's kind of like a children's room, because there's a little stuffed animal and a lion, and then there's a drawing on the wall, and it's a drawing of Eleven and Papa, and then it has a cat on a table, and then like some like stick thing, and then with like a little string at the bottom with a little yellow dot at the end of the string. So I'm guessing it's like, I don't know what it could be, but it I don't know. I'm really confused. But whenever my first thought of it was like a window thing, like blinds, and then you like pull it on the street, or maybe like a light bulb or something. I don't know. But yeah, and then he goes down an elevator, and he's about to get caught. But when he goes down the elevator, he walks down like a really dark hallway and finds a hole in the wall. With like stuff coming out of it and stuff, and he's like, messing with the strings like across from it, and then someone gets him, and they're like wearing a yellow suit thing, like a quarantine suit. So yeah, that's that scene.
I was just trying to find the picture of the drawing, because I didn't make note of the string thing that you're talking about. I see it now. It looks to me like it's one of those maps you pull down, like it rolls up on a thing, and then you pull the string and a map or something else comes down.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, it like blinds. I was thinking like it covered a window.
Yeah. I certainly don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know what, I'm not sure what that would be yet. So, but I'm glad you pointed that out, because I really didn't think much of it. My eye instead caught you said it was a cat on the table. I think instead of that being a cat, although it technically is a cat, I guess, that's the lion plush toy that he saw on the bed. I think that's also what's on in the drawing. But here's what I thought was really interesting. Later on in the episode, it actually is a scene right as they're preparing for Will's funeral. We see their dog go into Castle Byers and lay down. Mm-hmm. There is a lion plush toy inside Castle Byers that looks eerily similar. I want to say identical, but I couldn't tell for sure. The lighting wasn't quite around the base of the neck, if I could tell if it had the mane or not. The one in Castle Byers, like the one in Elle's bed. But man, they looked like the same lion to me. They had the same color eyes, the same mouth, the same nose. All the features I could see looked identical. So I don't think it's coincidence that they would show this plush toy in both places. Now, obviously, the one in Castle Byers is worn and weathered and stuff like that, where the one on Elle's bed looked brand new practically. But otherwise, they looked identical. I don't know. To me, that links Will and Elle in some sort of, like, that's not a coincidence. Like, I think the Duffer Brothers put that in there as a clue of some sort.
Okay.
So I will put that in my. I will talk about this again in my predictions segment.
I still think it's a cat, though, like an actual cat.
On the drawing.
Yeah.
It could be. It could be. Yeah. Don't know. But for sure, the plush toys are what I'm focusing in on. But I just assumed the plush toy was what we saw in the drawing. But you could be totally correct on that. on the thing. Okay, so the next scene we have is it's in the basement of the Wazowski house.
The Wheeler house.
That's what I said. And they're trying to, figure out what to do. Elle says upside down. Now, I have to admit, Mike's a smart guy, very smart. All the boys actually very smart. But it seemed like he understood exactly that she was talking about the board being upside down. He put those pieces together a little bit too easily for my taste, but not a big deal. Not a big deal at all, in fact.
Well, it kind of helps that the board was still like upside down and like they haven't, moved anything.
True.
Since then.
But if you say upside down and there's this game board over here that happens to be upside down that you put there 2 days ago, I don't think that's my first thought to go, oh my gosh, but that's okay. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me that much because it really helps catapult us into some really important stuff. Now, the show has from the very beginning, right, had this parallel comparison, whatever you want, I don't know what to call it, with Dungeons and Dragons. We see it from the very beginning with them and the Demogorgon and the parallels that have been drawn with that. So they kind of stay with those themes, those parallels with the Veil of Shadows. We learn that it's a dimension that is dark, that's a dark reflection or echo of our world. It's a place of decay and death. It's a plane out of phase, a place of monsters. It's right next to you and you don't even see it. That's pretty creepy.
Every time I hear that part, I'm just like looking around the room like, what?
Yeah. And that it's an alternate dimension. So, and they were also talking about some of the language they heard Will say when they had him on the radio in the last episode. So all of that kind of fits in nicely with the Veil of Shadows. Now, I don't know yet in the show if they are basically trying to tell us that, yes, this is the Veil of Shadows. The upside down, for all intents and purposes, is a Veil of Shadows, or if it's really just something to help us kind of understand what the upside down is. And I don't think that really matters. I think that's kind of splitting hairs to some degree. But boy, we learn a lot. I don't learn a lot about it, but we certainly learn some very important things. We see it more in this episode than we've ever seen before up to this point. So that's part of why I really liked this episode. And this discussion kind of sets all that up. It kind of, for me, it helped me envision what's going on and give me a better understanding of what it is we're dealing with. But Elle tells them that she doesn't know how to get there. Totally lying.
Elle knows everything.
Does she?
Well, she's 11. She's awesome. She probably knows what, 5 plus 7 is without even having to think.
I would hope so. Yeah. Anyway, I just love the scene. I thought it was a really nice piece of information that we have in this scene. All right, what are your thoughts on Lonnie in this episode?
I don't like him.
So,
okay.
The same thoughts you've had on him on every episode.
Yeah, I don't like him, but I still hate Steve more, so.
Do you now? I hate Lonnie more. Steve is an immature high school punk. Lonnie is a grown man. And as we go through this episode, we saw it in the first episode, when Jonathan goes over there to confront him, he turned it around to make himself the victim instead of Jonathan. And when Joyce calls him out on his crap in this episode, he turns it around on her to make her look like the bad parent. When I don't think either of them are going to win Parenting of the Year awards here, but clearly Lonnie is the more selfish, out of touch, worst parent. Like he's a terrible parent, and to me that's way more despicable than anything Steve has ever. Steve's just an immature high school punk. That's it. Lonnie is just a deadbeat and a loser. So yeah, Lonnie's my least liked character on the show. I even like the Demogorgon more than Lonnie.
I like the Demogorgon more than Steve.
I find the Demogorgon more interesting than Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve should have a pizza delivered to the Upside Down in the Rescue Nancy. We'll talk about that. Let's see. So Lonnie is not helping at all. He's sitting there talking to Joyce, telling her that she, I think he's trying. I actually think he's trying to help. He obviously doesn't believe her, thinks that she's crazy, but
so does everyone else.
Right, exactly, except for Jonathan and Hopper, of course. But yeah, he's just not helping anything. When Jonathan shows up, he obviously agrees with Joyce now. He's come to a point where he understands more and believes her story. He tries to get Lonnie to leave, and Lonnie's just being Lonnie. I don't know. I just want to punch this guy
in the face
multiple times, and I'm debating throat, face. How about both? I don't know. But when Joyce finds out he's only there after the money, trying to get a lawsuit and get some money, and he doesn't hide it. He acknowledges it. So she calls him out on it. What are you going to do with the money? And then he turns it, right? He's like, oh, but Jonathan could finally go to school.
And he doesn't even know what college.
Exactly.
But, I mean, clearly he's been wanting to go to, what is it, NYU?
Yeah, that's right.
Even I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a total deadbeat. Just, can't stand the guy. Now, he did make mention of the Evil Dead poster, so did you notice that?
So Lonnie tells Jonathan to take down the Evil Dead poster because it's inappropriate, but he's not even there for his own kids.
Yeah.
So he really shouldn't be commenting on their life.
No, not at all.
If they want to have that in their room, then, he doesn't even live there, so he shouldn't be able to tell them what to do.
Completely agree. Not his house. Yeah, it's his kid, but no, you don't... But I think it was really, okay, it just reiterated or underscored how big of a loser Lonnie is. But I think it was to point out, for those of you who hadn't previously noticed the Evil Dead poster, maybe you should notice the Evil Dead poster and, get a clue from it. But we already talked about that in previous episodes. So I think it was, again, just to kind of underscore Evil Dead as a theme. Or another work that has similar themes to this show. So, but yeah, he's a jerk, totally. Okay, time for the funeral. Your note in here I love.
Even the doggo is sad.
Yeah, he was. And that's all I thought the first time I watched the episode. It wasn't until my second watch that I noticed the lion in there. The dog lays down right next to where the lion is. Really odd funeral because... all the people that they're really showing, except for Lonnie and the girl who's crying, all the rest of them, they don't believe Will's actually in the casket. Jonathan, Joyce, the three boys, I'm sure there's some other people shown that I'm not thinking. I mean, they showed parents briefly and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's, it's really weird because nobody is mourning except, Lonnie's not mourning because he's a jerk. I don't even think he cares. I really
he just
don't
wants
think
the money.
Yeah. So, he's trying to be stoic and be strong and be the man. I don't know, but to me, it just comes across as he just doesn't even care.
Oh, and what annoys me, I forgot to make a note about this, but
yeah.
So Mike's parents and then some other parents go over to Lonnie and they're giving him hugs and stuff oh, I'm so sorry, and then they just leave Joyce there by herself, she's the one that's actually caring, and Lonnie doesn't care at all. So why are you being all sympathetic to them?
Yeah, I didn't notice that. It's a good question though. I did notice that Joyce was left kind of by herself, which was sad. Did you notice what color of roses they were?
Yellow.
Yeah. Which I thought was weird. I don't know. I mean, typically the funerals I've been to, there's a big bouquet on top of the casket, and of course there's flowers everywhere. So I didn't, the first time I watched the episode, I didn't really think too much of it. You see flowers at funerals, you see them on top of caskets. And I've even seen movies and stuff where people throw single flowers in there like that.
Yeah, I've only been to one funeral and I was 6, so I don't remember what happened.
Yeah. But in this one they put yellow roses. So I looked up, I'm like, what is this another thing I should be cluing in on? So I Googled it up. What's the meaning of yellow roses? And I found 3 or 4 different websites that I looked at. Most of them had the same things, and that was that yellow roses signify joy hope, and happiness, which on one hand seems really contrary to something that you would see at a funeral. But on the other hand, you could say, well, that's the message these people are wanting. Will was our friend. We want to fill the family with hope and happiness and those sorts of things. So you can kind of see how those themes would carry on. One website in particular said that yellow roses also represent wisdom and power, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if Will's going to have some powers or not. Again, I'll talk more about that in my predictions segment. But what I thought was interesting was with the word wisdom there, like almost the next scene is a flashback of Joyce. And Will is sitting there drawing at the table, and it's...
those cabbages.
That's right, the cabbages. And she uses a phrase. Now, it's the wizard that he's drawing, but she calls him Will the Wise. So I thought that was interesting, because I just looked up because I paused the episode, looked those up, hit the play button, and then like a minute later, I hear the phrase Will the Wise. So I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So we'll see if something comes of that or not. But again, I've got a little bit of a prediction on this information when we get to that part. I just thought it was interesting because, she says, Will the Wise.
And she says, well, if he's so wise, why does he need fireballs? And he says, well, sometimes the bad guys are smart too. Mm-hmm. I don't know, that kind of stuck out to me. I don't really think it's that important, but for some reason it stuck out to me, so I don't know.
No, I thought it was a bit of foreshadowing. I don't know, if you're still confused, I don't know if you're playing like you're confused so you don't spoil me, or if that's something that, they set up here that is going to pay off in later seasons. But I thought it was some foreshadowing for sure.
All right.
Okay. I think we agree on that. So the last time we saw Hopper, he was getting syringed in the neck. So when he wakes up in his house, I was really surprised. I thought for sure he was going to wake up, in some sort of holding cell in the lab.
Chair.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, whenever I first watched that, I thought he was going to be, strapped to a chair or, in a cell or, being experimented on. But he wasn't. Yeah. So.
And again, we've talked numerous times through our podcast about...
Oh, and he was also wearing different clothes.
Oh, you're right.
And he was all sweaty.
Yeah. Which the drug they put in him could have made him sweat while he was, while it was working through his system. Or maybe, he turns the air up when he leaves to work in the morning, and they didn't bother to turn it down for him when they jumped it. Who knows? It was definitely very sweaty. But we've talked a few times about how he's a pretty good cop. Mm-hmm. And immediately he's like, what? And starts just ransacking his own house. Just when you think he's crazy. Yeah,
at first I was like, oh, he just needed, light bulbs and batteries and stuff, and he was gonna make something.
Yeah.
Because, the lights. But then he, cuts open a couch cushion and destroys his phone, or his telephone. And, yeah, I was really confused. And then whenever he's finally done searching, I thought it was a necklace. At first I thought someone put a necklace in the light in his living room.
Oh, okay.
And of course it's the last place he looks after he's destroyed his entire house.
Why would he keep looking after he found it?
Huh?
Of course it was the last place.
Well, okay, I mean, after he's already destroyed his entire house.
I know what you mean. I'm giving you a hard time.
Yeah, but I thought it was a little necklace or something. Uh-huh. And then, I was still kind of confused. I was like, why was he looking everywhere for a necklace? Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird. I mean, I thought it had something to do with maybe his ex-wife or his daughter, but it doesn't. So
yeah, it's a bug to listen in. So earlier in the season, when you were talking about how the lab guys are able to hear conversations, it could be that they've planted these types of devices in various places. For example, okay, so Hopper, again, being the smart guy, he goes, where else have they bugged? Later in the episode, we see him showing up at Joyce's house with the sign, don't say anything.
Yeah, that's when I realized.
What it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. See, in his own house, he looked everywhere. You mentioned even slicing open the couch cushion. At her house, he seemed to be content with only checking the lights. And I guess that's because that's where he found it at his house.
Yeah.
But I just felt like he stopped too short there. You know, we've seen the scientists at their house when they're not home. So I totally think they bugged her house. And I totally think that it's still bugged. And he should have had the same diligence in searching her house as he did his own.
Well, I figured he didn't want to, destroy... I didn't really think anything of it.
Yeah.
But I figured he didn't really want to, destroy someone else's house, especially since she's already going through a lot.
True.
And she already destroyed her wall and another wall. And, there's probably broken glass everywhere because I'm sure a few of the light bulbs broke. If I was the one doing it, I probably would have broken a few because I probably would have dropped a few. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he just didn't want to, trash her house more than it already was.
I hadn't thought about that. I think you're right about that. The one really good thing he did, though, was he sat her down and said, I went to the morgue last night. Will's body is fake. And finally, somebody, there are 3 people in this show who know that Joyce isn't crazy. Now, because we're not taking our discussion chronologically, 2 of them have already made the decision by this point in the episode not to tell her that. So the one remaining person who can go to Joyce and say, you're not crazy, I'm on your side, and he chooses to do it. And I was just so grateful because this poor woman, she thinks she's all alone. Everyone is telling her that she's crazy. And I just felt like she really needed one of these people to let her know that she wasn't, that they had observed things that validated her. And so when he did that, I just was like fist pumping because I felt like she desperately needed that. I mean, she's still going to be on the edge, I think, but that's got to bring her back, help her like breathe a sigh of relief, at least to some extent, to know that she isn't crazy. So I thought that was great.
I like when he said, you were right this whole time.
Yeah.
That gives her like a lot of credit.
It sure does. Very good. Okay. Another little tidbit we find kind of in the midst of all these things, the state troopers found Barb's car at a bus station. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that the scientists planted it there so that it would be, just to kind of throw everybody off.
So they would stop thinking about it.
She ran away, this isn't nothing more to look for. I mean, sure, maybe she'll turn up somewhere, but this is not related to the Will Byers thing. And just to kind of throw everybody, you think the same thing, or do you have a different thought on that?
I kind of thought that it's because they didn't want anyone thinking about it anymore. Because maybe, I don't know, since they started blaming the lab place for Will's disappearance, maybe they didn't want the same thing to happen with Barb's disappearance. And like have the whole thing over again, like, okay, I need to search here for Barb. And then, because they know that Hopper's onto them. So,
right.
And also the other polices, is that a word?
No.
Anyway.
Officers?
No. The other polices that
okay.
that go to Hopper's house, I don't know their names, but the 2, other main ones, they were talking about how some lady came in and she said that Dale and Henry went hunting the day before and they didn't come back home. And Hopper asked where they were hunting and they said Curly or something like that. And he said, and then he like whispers under his breath, Mirkwood. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the street that
Will Byers disappeared on. Yeah.
Because at that second, every time I see that, I just go, dude, stay away from Mirkwood. Like, haven't you heard? Like, everything bad goes on there. It's like walking into the basement in a horror movie. You just don't do it.
That's right. Yeah, so I'm glad you pointed that out. I actually didn't put that in the notes, but I think we'll probably find their... my prediction, if you want to call it that, is that we'll find Nancy will stumble across their bodies. She won't know what they are, but we'll know. Well, oh, that's Dale and Henry, something like that. I don't think that'll be anything significant, but it'll be a clue to us that there's even more going on here than most people know. But I don't know. We'll find out. I'm glad you wrote that in there, so we'll keep up with it. Okay, the next scene we're going to talk about, I thought was another one of those really good informational scenes.
Yeah, this is the informational scene that I was talking about whenever I wrote the Twitter thing.
Oh, good. Okay. So this is also the scene that gives the episode its title.
The Flea and the Acrobat.
Yeah.
So the boys are at the funeral reception and they go to Mr. Clarke and they're like, hey, can we ask you some questions? They're really important. And whenever they start asking the questions, I bet Mr. Clarke's like, okay, these aren't that important. Like, why are they asking me this? This is just all, not real. So whenever they start asking about, portals to different dimensions and how to get there, theoretically, of course, because right. they say that at least 10 times within that scene. So yeah, he's explaining how to get there. So then he gets the paper plate and he does a little drawing with the Acrobat and how it can move back and forth. It can move forwards and backwards. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Flea that can... the Flea can also move forwards and backwards, but it can also move in between and underneath. And then all the boys are like, upside down. So then they're like, okay, how do you get to the upside down? They're like, well, we're Acrobat, so we can't do that. So he explains that they're not capable of creating a portal since they don't have the technology to do so. And then he's like, okay, what if there already is one? And that's when he kind of gives them the idea that, well, they definitely know about it because it would affect gravity and like the magnets, stuff like that, and it would disrupt time and space and all that. And he said it would also, he said something about like swallowing us whole, like
what?
I don't know. I remember him saying something like about swallowing us whole, like something about like the portal taking over.
Yeah.
So okay, now that I think about it, whenever Will was talking to his mom like through the wall and you could like see him,
yeah,
the portal like was as big as the wallpaper that she ripped off, and then it started getting like smaller.
Right.
I don't know, so maybe that has like something to do with it and she just created a portal or something, but I don't know, because portals you can go through, but he obviously couldn't go through there, or he would have done it and the show would have ended right there.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have ended. I mean, there's still the whole issue of the hole, the in the lab. I mean, when you talk about Mr. Clarke saying it would swallow us, I mean, that hole that we see in the lab and the upside down seems to be emerging and growing out of it. I mean, I think I think he's right about that. I think that the upside down is going to continue to come through that and spread, like any hole. Like you get a rip in your fabric of your shirt. It starts out just one little thing and then keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So that's kind of what I see is happening there with that hole in the lab.
Rest in pepperonis.
So then the boys take all that information that they got from Mr. Clarke and they go back to Elle and they ask her if she knows where the gate is. Like the gate isn't really a term that they thought of until they talked to Mr. Clarke. She is denying it.
What's a gate, huh?
Yeah. Dustin notices that the compasses are off. Lucas and Mike Wazowski are a little slow to figure out the significance of that, which is a scene that we played, for our opening for this episode. Thanks, Addie. Mm-hmm. And the camera pans over to Elle, gives us our first big clue. Not necessarily the first one, but this is really a significant one. She looks worried. We know that she's been lying about where the gate is or anything like that, where the upside down is. But this was a pretty significant, obvious clue that she is very concerned that the boys are still continuing to pursue this and learn more information on their own. And now, with the help of their compasses, Dustin was right on. If we follow what this compass says is north, because this compass is drawn to the gate, then we should find it. And he was right. So she's going to have to intervene. When we see the boys take off, though, on their journey,
They're walking down the train tracks.
yes,
And that's kind of a shout out to Stand By Me.
that's right. And I know you haven't seen Stand By Me.
It's rated R.
It's rated R, so we haven't let you watch it. But it's such a good movie. And that movie, the boys in that movie are following railroad tracks for quite a long time in that movie. So when you see when you see the boys following those tracks, I mean, for me, instant drawback to Stand By Me.
I had to look it up.
Since the did you? Since this is filmed in Georgia, these are probably the same tracks that we've seen in like The Walking Dead. For those of you who watch, I don't watch The Walking Dead a whole lot, but I've seen those tracks.
Doesn't it gross out Mom?
It does. Just the sound effects gross her out, not the visuals, just the sound effects. But anyway, yeah, total Stand By Me. I'm curious though. You say you looked it up, so tell me about that process and what you found.
Whenever I kind of looked it up, well, I think I saw something because I didn't even know Stand By Me was a thing. Like, I just thought it was a song. So whenever I saw someone like draw a connection to it, I was like, okay. So I kind of looked it up earlier today, and sure enough, in Google Images, like a lot of the fan art and stuff even like takes place on the train tracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a big shout out to that. What year is it made? Do you know?
Oh gosh, Stand By Me, I would say 86, 85, 84, somewhere around there. Let's Google it up. 1986.
86?
Yeah. So let's talk through this whole progression here. The boys start out walking through on the train tracks. On my second watch, I noticed a lot more things with Elle than I did on the first watch. Lucas is really a sharp guy, especially in this scene where he's picking up that she's acting weird. I didn't notice anything weird on my first watch. On my second watch, yeah, you definitely see her back there wiping her nose and stuff like that. And, those were the telltale signs that if she's wiping her nose, she's bleeding. And if she's bleeding, it's because she's using her powers. And if she's using her powers in that situation, why? Of course, we're going to find out why. But this all leads up to pretty significant altercation, right? I mean, Dustin figures out eventually that they've made just a big loop. Lucas goes off on Elle. She says it's not safe. She's trying to protect them. And of course, you and I know that. She knows that. The boys just think that she's working against them. They want Will, or she wants Will to, remain wherever he's at. And it causes Lucas and Mike to get in a huge fight.
Because Mike is on her side.
Right. Lucas has had enough. Lucas has been against her more strongly than anybody else from day one, right? He's always been against her. It seems like he's always looking for a reason to be against her, which I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like he's doing it out of malice.
I think it's because it seems like they've been friends for a long time. Or at least for a while. So then all of a sudden they just find a girl and then, add her to the friend group. I mean, I'd be kind of mad too if I had like a group of friends and then they all of a sudden want to add some guy. Like, no, you can't do that. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation, Addie. I hadn't considered that. But when you think about it, when Mike... his walkie-talkie seems to reach Lucas, but not Dustin. It could be a distance thing. Like Lucas lives maybe in between Dustin and Mike. Mike's walkie-talkie can't reach Dustin's. Dustin's can't reach Mike. Because we saw that relay that one time. You get over here, bring Dustin with you. So that could be why they're closer too. I think you're right on. I think that they're closer. And Lucas is maybe resenting that. I think Lucas is just more skeptical too. Like he's just his radar detects things that the other guys don't. I think he's maybe more observant and more skeptical. And
he's more realistic.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. I was going to say he's not wrong. He is wrong, but it's not like he's.
I mean, he has a good reason to be wrong.
Right, exactly. Like he's wrong about her coming from the funny farm, but she does come from a peculiar place, right?
Mm-hmm. Sweden.
That's right. That's right. This terrible wig. So Elle ends up trying to break up the fight. I don't know. She thrusts Lucas. He slides into the car hood, gets knocked unconscious. By the time he wakes up,
funny.
Elle is gone. It's scary.
I mean, I was kind of scared, but like, cause I mean, I know he probably wasn't hurt or anything, because I don't think they would have like two main problems in a show, because Will Byers' disappearance and then Lucas dying. I don't think they would do that. Yeah. So then I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Yeet.
It was cool.
Especially since he used to be my least favorite character, and then I realized how bad Steve was.
Yeah.
So then I just didn't like him. And then, yeah.
Well, tucked into this scene is a flashback. And it's a flashback of Elle. Do you know, like, I would love to get your take on this scene. I've put literally no notes in here. My note says flashback of Elle in sensory deprivation tank. So what are your thoughts on this scene? And I don't know if we see more of these things in future episodes, right? I've only seen through episode 5. So obviously I don't want you to spoil me or anything, but if, based on what you can say, what are your thoughts on this scene?
I forgot what happened in this scene. Like, there's quite a few that are kind of mixing together, so I don't know what happens in this scene.
Okay.
Because I don't want to say anything else, because if I do, mix it up and say the wrong scene, then you're like, oh, that happens?
Right. Okay. That's fair. Well, let me just describe for you my take on this scene. So at the top of our podcast today, I told you that this episode gave me, it tied in or gave me the feels for another one of my favorite shows. And you're like, wow, only Stranger Things can be your favorite show.
Exactly.
Which is Fringe. And if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't ever seen Fringe, I implore you to go watch it. If you like what you're seeing in this show, you will like what Fringe brings you. It gets better as the show goes on.
They have adorable 14-year-old kids.
They, at times, the first season is a little bit rocky at times. So if you start going, you're like, I don't like this show. Trust me, stay with it, and it will have one of the best series finales of any show you'll ever watch. It's really, really good. But what we see in this particular episode, and by the way, if you do watch Fringe, the pilot episode, you'll see what I mean just in that episode alone. But we see the sensory deprivation tank play a pretty significant role in that show. And Elle reminds me a lot of Olivia from Fringe. Olivia. One. That's right. I've got a poster of her and a few of the other characters from Fringe on my wall here. And I don't want to spoil you guys who haven't seen Fringe. I think most of you listening, at least early on in our podcast, have probably started listening to us because you were watching and listening to our podcast on Fringe. But I do want to be mindful of those who haven't seen it. But I'll just say that, the sensory deprivation tank is a way of awakening your senses and helping some people. This is all theory on some of this stuff, but particularly in the 80s and 60s and 70s, you could go into the sensory deprivation tank. You don't hear anything. The door closes. You don't see anything.
Wait, those are real things?
Yeah, they're real things.
I thought Stranger Things just made it up.
No. Oh, gosh, no. And especially in like the 60s and 70s, you probably would take some hallucinogenic drugs when you would go into it. And the idea was it would just awaken your mind and allow you to see other realities or, things like that, right? And those sorts of things, it does, right? Those sorts of things are highly skeptical and never been proven and that sort of thing. But people do still use sensory deprivation tanks today. In fact, I read an article on it today that told me one of your favorite people on this planet uses a sensory deprivation tank.
Ben Wolfhard?
He's an athlete, and it helps him.
Steph Curry!
Steph Curry, according to this article I read, uses one about every 2 weeks to, I don't know what purpose he uses it for. But anyway, so to see Elle going into the sensory deprivation tank and to see her be able to, it's called an astral projection, being able to project herself into another dimension, if you will, or another place, and detect what's going on and then see and experience that. Pretty cool. Pretty fantastic. And so, yeah, I loved it. I loved it a lot, actually. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to learn more about that. So, but when they put her in that sensory deprivation tank, I was just like, okay, I was a giddy little schoolgirl. Okay, I'll just say it, Addison. I was a giddy little schoolgirl. I liked what I was seeing.
You mean me whenever any of the kids come on screen?
Or you see a shed, yes. Okay, let's see if let me look through the notes here and see if while you laugh that joke off, which may take 5 minutes for you to recover, I'm going to look through our notes, make sure that we've talked about everything. I love your laugh, by the way. Okay, I think we've got all that. Okay, last scene we're going to talk about, last storyline, Jonathan and Nancy. You're still laughing over there. After the funeral, they kind of huddle together, share their notes, and they decide they're going to go looking in the woods for the monster, but not tell Joyce that they believe her, which I thought was a huge mistake. It's like, Jonathan, you've got, like, you see how your mom is unraveling, and you can't even just swing by the house and say, Mom, we believe you, and we're going to go investigate further. And I'm sure he did that so that she wouldn't worry about him and stuff like that, but man, I don't know. I thought he should have told her. I mean, she's over there shedding tears every day about Will. All right, you got to gain your composure over here. I'm just glad I can tell jokes as a dad that you find this funny. And now she stopped laughing. All right. So they decide to go through... Actually, before they decide to go into the woods, we find Jonathan doing target practice with the gun. He's a terrible shot. Nancy walks up. She's the natural, so she's going to get
You also learn a lot of information about their families.
You do. What do you think about that?
You find out that Nancy's family is just, basic. He was rich and had a nice family. She was young, so they got married and had a little house at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, and he was a jock. And so when Jonathan calls her out on it and says, you may hate your parents, but you're heading down the same path, dating the jock who has lots of money, hit a little bit too close to home for her. She didn't appreciate that, but he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
She's going to be just like her mom.
And Jonathan, it shows a lot about his character. It said he cried for like a week straight, and he was 9 and he had to kill a bunny. And so this shows how much more of a jerk his dad is and how much Jonathan isn't like him. So that's good.
This really develops into something like you think they're going to bond a little bit, and then she presses him on what's my story, and he tells her that story that we just talked about, and that kind of makes it awkward and uncomfortable, and kind of they're kind of upset with each other because she's like, I thought you were nice, and da-da-da. So they're kind of upset with each other. But anyway, day turns to night, and they find a deer. Tell me, if you can, your thoughts on the first time you saw the deer, from the moment the deer gets pulled away until really the end of the episode.
I was like, oh crap, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. That's it? That's all you got?
So
like, did it scare you when the deer first and then got dragged off? Did it make you jump?
It still does, just because the background noise and stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those make you jump a little bit.
And because it happens so fast.
Right.
Even though I've seen it, 50 plus times, and I know when it's coming and I know exactly what happens, it still scares me. Like, so does, or it doesn't scare me, it just startles me.
Right,
like,
right.
And so does the first scene in episode 1 where when the scientist breaks through the door or opens the door or whatever, like that part always makes me jump. I'm like, what?
Okay, what about when Nancy decided to go into the tree? What were you thinking then? Don't
go in the basement in a horror movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, hey, here's this creepy looking slimy tree portal thing that, like, I can see how big around this tree is. I shouldn't be able to crawl entirely into it. But hey, I'm just going to go in and I'm not going to tell Jonathan. It's exactly like you said. Don't go into the basement in a horror movie. And you know, we talked about the movie poster earlier. This isn't exactly that. She's not being dragged into this other dimension, but she's going into the other dimension. Okay, she goes into the other dimension. I'm going to ask you your opinion on something else here. She goes into the other dimension, the upside down, and we see the Demogorgon over there eating the deer. This is the first time that we have seen... This is the best look we've had at the Demogorgon. Now, I have seen the Funko Pop figurine of the Demogorgon. So I knew that it had its face configuration thing. I had, you and I talked about it. It reminded me of the flower thing from the Little Shop of Horrors. And you were like, what's that? And we talked about it. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that. But this is the first time we really get to see it. And it's like whole face opens up type of thing, like a flower with teeth type of thing. Do you remember? So for me, I'd already seen that image out and about because, we saw it at Hot Topic or other places, right? So that it didn't really, even though when I saw it, I was like, oh, cool. It didn't like surprise me, but you would have seen it without having seen any of that other stuff. So do you remember what your first reaction was when you saw that flash of the creepy Demogorgon face thing?
No, I probably had my eyes closed.
Oh, man, I was really hoping you had I set you up for this great story. You just let me and the rest of the listening audience down.
Sorry.
How do you feel about that?
Pretty great, actually, yeah. I'm here every time.
Anytime we need a letdown, you're here for us, huh?
Yep.
You got that.
I'm good at that.
All right. Yeah, well, anyway, I thought it was super cool, even though I wasn't surprised by I didn't know we were going to get to see it in this episode. But I knew we'd see it at some point, so really, really cool. So now the question is, what happened to Nancy? Is she alive? We see the tree kind of closing back up, so she can't even get out now the way she came in. And Jonathan's, yelling for her and no idea.
Which means he still cares, even though they're mad at each other.
Right.
Unlike his dad.
Right. So I just loved it. I thought it was such a good episode. We see some great backstory on 11. We see again some really good, gumshoe detective work by the boys, and we learn a lot more about the Upside Down. Nancy's now over there, which is going to change the dynamic of the show entirely. Just a lot of really good stuff. I can't wait. So I watched this episode a week ago. Been waiting a whole week to watch episode 6, and finally I get to watch episode 6. I'm really excited about that.
All right.
Any other thoughts from you before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Well, this would be the segment that we would normally segue into our notes from the Upside Down, which is our listener feedback segment. We don't have any, as we mentioned.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for nothing. We'd love to hear from you.
Apparently, I'm not the only letdown.
Wow, Addie is savage today. We'd love to hear from you, though. You can send us feedback via our social media accounts, which are...
So our Instagram is Stranger Things GSM. Our Twitter is Upside Down GSM. And our Facebook is facebook.com/group/Stranger Things GSM.
Indeed. And you can also head over to goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. And you'll have a variety of ways there. You can use our phone number to leave a voicemail. You can use our SpeakPipe widget. You can type out a contribution. You can pre-record an audio file and attach it to our feedback form. It's so easy over there at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. So we hope to hear from you soon. All right, Addie, you know what that means?
Quote of the week.
You picked a really good one for the opener today. What have you got for us for the actual winner of Quote of the Week?
Man, things aren't real nil away first.
Mr. Clarke?
Oh, hey there. How you boys holding up?
We're in mourning.
Man, these aren't real Nilla wafers.
I thought for sure he was saying oatmeal.
Oh, you're gonna see. I was gonna sneak in a little bit of a inside joke a little bit later. I have a little spot. I was gonna mention oatmeal, but that's okay. You can rat yourself out if you want.
So, whenever I first watched this episode, every single time I've watched this episode, it's whenever they're at the reception,
right?
And it's right after Lucas says we're in mourning. He's so funny whenever he has to pretend to be sad and stuff. And I thought for sure Dustin was saying, man, these oatmeal Nilla wafers. But no, he's saying aren't real Nilla wafers.
Oatmeal aren't real. I can totally see it. It's okay. Which then that got you and I off on this rabbit trail of watching the comedian with misheard lyrics, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. I believe the hot dogs go on. Let's see. All right. Well, with that, let's move into the predictions segment. Okay, so what I love about this this show is there's always so much to make you think. And every time you watch it, there's something new to discover. I mentioned in this episode several things that I noticed the second time I watched. In fact, when I was editing episode 3 last week,
Holly Jolly,
I picked up on something new again. Maybe it was episode 2, but it was the meatloaf scene, right? And in fact, I told you about it today, where Addison instantly identified with this. When she wants something, all kids do this. They will try to butter you up, and then they'll ask you something, right? And so in that scene, with the meatloaf scene, Nancy says, I like the meatloaf, Mommy, using Mommy to butter her up. Oh, by the way, there's something at the school tonight. Can I go? You know, and you do that all the time. You know,
when? I don't.
You did it today in the car. You called your mom Mommy.
When?
Oh, I don't remember what the context. Well, you didn't ask her for something after that, but you were trying to get on her good side for something. I don't recall exactly what it was, but you called her Mommy, and then you mentioned something specific.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, I don't either, because then that reminded me of the Stranger Things, and then we started talking about that. But that's it. As parents, we hear that and see that a lot. So Duffer Brothers, good job on you for putting that little subtlety in there. I loved it upon my 5th watch and actually catching it. But predictions. This is, again, I pick up on little things, and I don't know if they're going to be true or not. But I've got 2 predictions here, and they really go together as one prediction. So we saw the lion toys. I mentioned earlier in the episode where Elle had one in the flashback, Will had one in Castle Byers. We also see in a Will Byers flashback the mention of powers, right? The Will the Wise and his powers and stuff like that. Again, maybe I'm leaning too heavily on my fringe tendencies here, but I'm going to say that Will and Elle are linked. And
don't you mean they're Zelda?
I see what you did there. They, I already made the prediction earlier in the season, like episode 1 or episode 2, that, in fact, I think my prediction was that Will Byers would return. That would be like the cliffhanger at the end of the first season, would be the return of Will Byers. So I don't know if that's going to play out, but I do think Will Byers will return at some point. I've made that pretty clear. And I think there's going to be a time where Will and Elle will be able to connect, and they are going to be a dynamic duo. And I think the lion gives us a link, a clue that there's a link there between the two. And I think we're going to find that just as Elle has superpowers, Will has superpowers. And maybe he didn't, but maybe because of where he is now, he's going to emerge from the Upside Down with some sort of capabilities that he didn't possess when he went into the Upside Down. So that is my prediction of the week.
Can you talk a little longer so I can keep laying down?
Nope. It is time to move on to the Hawkins Report, which is our news and rumors. All right, Addison, do you know, today we are recording this on what day?
Sunday, July 2nd, 2017, and it's currently 11:38 p.m.
That's right.
I'm really tired.
We are going to be releasing this on which day?
I don't know.
That's right, July 19th. July 19th, 2017. You know what you and I are going to be doing on July 19th, 2017?
Breathing?
Well, I certainly hope so. Beyond that, where will we be breathing?
San Diego Comic-Con in San Diego,
right.
Coalifornia.
That's right.
At Comic-Con.
We will be landing in San Diego that day, breathing the beautiful, fresh
California air.
Sea breeze air of San Diego.
California.
You've never been to San Diego. This will be like my 6th time there. Not my 6th time at Comic-Con, though. I think it's my 4th time at San Diego Comic-Con. And so we are really excited. Hey, you know what? I gladly, yes, and you too, by the way. So while we're recording this on July 2nd, it's going to release on July 19th, the day we land at Comic-Con. There has been some recent announcements, recent as of the day we're recording this, announcements about San Diego Comic-Con. They announced just, I think on June 30th, that Stranger Things, the cast will be at San Diego Comic-Con. There really wasn't any doubt in my mind. I mean, they've been to other Comic-Cons around the country. San Diego Comic-Con is the biggest one, so it's no surprise that they're there. And not only that, they're going to be in Hall H, which is all the biggest shows get put into Hall H because that's the biggest room that can hold the most people. So kudos to the Duffer Brothers, the entire cast and crew that have worked so hard to get the fandom that requires Hall H. So that's going to be a challenge for us to get into Hall H. Addie has no idea what she's in for. And I don't know that I do either because I haven't been since they started the wristbanding system, but it should be fun. This is the press release that they put out. And there's I think a mild spoiler in here. It spoiled me. So if you haven't finished...
But it didn't spoil me. So.
No, if you haven't finished the season, then skip ahead, 30 seconds here so you can avoid this minor spoiler. Okay, so it says Netflix invites fans to join the cast and creators of the pop culture phenomenon Stranger Things to view never-before-seen footage from the 2nd season that picks up in the chaotic aftermath, here's the spoiler, of Will Byers' return to a world that will never be the same. Now, even though I had predicted that Will Byers would return before the end of season 1, I did not know that to be a fact. And so, anyway, mild spoiler, I think, but spoiler for me nonetheless. We also learned a couple of other things. You and I, everybody, who am I kidding? Everybody loves the little Funko Pop figurines, right?
Yeah, I have 3.
Yep. This came out, I think, a week or so, even prior to when we're recording this, maybe 2 weeks. But anyway, there's going to be 2 exclusive Funko Pop figurines released only at Comic-Con.
One of them is kind of a spoiler because the scene that it comes from, it's a Steve character. The scene that he comes from, though, hasn't happened yet. So
yeah. Well, both of these figurines spoiled me at the time. Although one I didn't really care about, and then I watched this episode, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's...
Mr. Clarke with the paper plate.
Yeah, because I had to go back, and I didn't realize it was Mr. Clarke at first. I thought it was, like, some other character, and then I realized it was Stranger Things, and I was like, oh, okay. So I, like, zoomed in, and I was like, is that a paper plate? And I was like, oh, Flea the Acrobat. Okay, I get it.
Right. Yeah, and the other pop figurine is Steve. He's got a bat. He's a little bloodied. So, knowing what I know now about Nancy being missing, I can only assume he's going to go try to find her, but I don't know. I don't know anything more. I've tried to not dig into why he's in that, why he looks that way. So hopefully I'll find that out sooner rather than later before I get spoiled.
I want that one because he's hurt.
So those will be fun. I don't think we're going to be able to get those. Those are Exclusives are hard to get. We do have tickets to preview night, which would allow us to get in early. But even then, it would take a miracle for us to get our hands on either one of those pop figurines. But
Are we allowed to get both?
My understanding is you can buy up to 2 of any single item at the Funko booth. So you could technically buy 2 of the 2 of the Steve figurine and 2 of the Mr. Clarke figurine, but I'm not sure. I really don't know.
We'd want to buy 2 of each.
People who like to either keep one new in box and have one to display out of the box, or more likely people who want to keep one and then sell one on eBay for $50,000.
Oh, sounds like a reasonable price.
Yeah. So anyway, that'll be a lot of fun. All right. Now, we're not quite done with some news yet. We've got some really exciting news that took place. And just to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit, you and I recorded everything that you just heard and everything you're about to hear after this segment like a week ago. And then we went to Guatemala for a week. And while we were gone, some really exciting stuff happened. So we decided to get back into the studio, record this update, inject it into the episode because it's really important stuff. So we've got some really exciting news. First off, the Emmy Award nominations have been announced, and Stranger Things has been nominated for 19 Emmy Awards.
Doesn't surprise me.
It surprises me because that's a lot. It's rare for a show to get that many. I'm not surprised in the least that it got nominated multiple times. I'm thrilled that it got nominated 19 times. Let's go over all of these. This information comes from our friends over at Variety, and so they have listed out all 19 of the nominations. Now, what's weird, Addie, is I've seen that some places listed as 18 nominations, and I've seen some places listed as 19 nominations. When I count them all up, going down the list, I count 19. So we're going with 19, because 19 is better than 18, right? So, Addie, I'll tell you what, let's go through the list of all 19 nominations and tell our wonderful listeners what the categories are that we got nominated in, okay? You want to take the first one?
Sure.
Okay.
They were nominated for the Best Drama Series.
And they're nominated in Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series, David Harbour, Chief Hopper himself.
Yeah, Hopper. The Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series, Millie Bobby Brown, which I was kind of surprised to see this. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I'm surprised like Winona Ryder wasn't nominated.
And well. It is possible, as you see in that same category, Ann Dowd from The Handmaid's Tale and Samira Wiley from The Handmaid's Tale are both nominated. So it is possible for multiple people from the same show to get nominated in the same category. To me, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the glaring omission from this list. And all these actresses are great, but holy cow, I would have thought Winona Ryder would have been nominated in that category. Yeah, she had to cry
in all 8 episodes.
Yeah, she did a great job. All right, we also have directing for a drama series, the Duffer Brothers.
Oh, really? they were the directors?
Yeah, they were. They're brothers, too, in case you didn't know.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
See, that's why you listen to this podcast. You learn things.
The Duffer Brothers are nominated again for the Best Writing for a Drama Series.
Yep. And Guest Actress in a Drama Series. This is awesome. We'll have a comment from her in just a moment. Shannon Purser, who of course plays Barb. And this is episode specific. So it's specific to Chapter 3, Holly Jolly. Yeah.
So Chris Chahio, William Davis, and Jess Royal are all nominated for production design for a narrative period program, 1 hour or more.
Yeah, quite the category there.
Wouldn't want to have to read that one.
That's true. Casting for a drama series, and this I love that they got nominated in this category because the casting on this show is fantastic. Of course, we have Carmen Cuba, Tara Feldstein Bennett, and Chase Paris.
Tim Ives was nominated for cinematography for a single camera series, 1 hour.
And single camera picture editing for a drama series. We have 2 nominations here. Dean Zimmerman.
And Kevin D. Ross.
All right. And hairstyling for a single camera series. Sarah Hines Gall and Evelyn Roach.
Netflix and CBS Digital were nominated for Creative Achievement in Interactive Media within a Scripted Program.
Yeah, now this one says Stranger Things VR experience. I'm not sure what that is.
Is it virtual reality?
Yeah, that's what VR stands for. But I don't know specifically what that is. I know that like you and I are technically at Comic-Con right now, and there is a VR experience there. So I don't know if they did something like that somewhere else. Maybe Comic-Con last year, because we didn't get to go last year. But whatever it is, that's the VR experience is what that Emmy nomination is for.
Was Comic-Con last year like the same month this?
Yeah. All right. The next one is main title design. This one is Michelle Daughtry, Peter Frankfurt, Arisu Kashiwagi, and Eric Demusy.
Makeup for a single camera series, non-prosthetic, is Mike Michaels and Teresa Vest for, Stranger Things Chapter 6, The Monster.
Yes, indeedy. And you know what, Addie? I'm going to let you take the next one.
Yay! So Michael Stein and Kyle Dixon were nominated for original main title theme music. And I really hope they win because it's amazing. I dance to it every time, and my friend walked in on me dancing.
I cannot express to you how much Addie loves the theme song to this. It's a great, I love it too, but Addie's love of the theme song is beyond anything. You have to see her respond to it every single time.
Yeah, he tried to record me doing it once, and I didn't let him.
I hope they win too. And then the next category is music supervision, and that is Nora Felder for Chapter 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street. 2 more. Believe it or not, we're still not done. We have 2 more. Sound editing for a series. This is Sam Munoz, David Klotz, Noel Voigt, and Ginger Gary.
Last but not least, for sound mixing for a comedy or drama series, 1 hour, are Joe Burnett, Adam Jenkins, Chris Durfee, Bill Higley for Stranger Things Chapter 8, The Upside Down.
So many great nominations. Now they're up against some fantastic competition, of course. It would be stunning, more, I won't say I'm stunned, more shocking that they got this many 19 would be if they walked away with none. I mean, that's unfathomable, right? So I'm looking forward to watching them walk away with multiple awards when the awards ceremony takes place on September 17th at 7 Central. That's 5 p.m. Pacific time on CBS. So keep your eye on that. And we'll be talking about that more on our podcast as that date draws closer. We also wanted to mention some of the things that the actors had to say when they found out that they had been nominated. Barb, I mentioned, or teased just a moment ago. Shannon Purser is her name. She says, "Wow, I am so incredibly honored. Thank you so much. Congratulations to all of the other incredible nominees."
David Harbour, who plays Jim Hopper, says, "Thank you, the Emmys, for the nomination. It is very special to me." And Stranger Things, with 18 nominations, which we counted 19, my pride in the show, unending. Heart. It says a heart.
It does. You're right. Yeah, and he says 18 too. I'm wondering if that VR experience does it count as the 19th or not?
I don't know.
I'm curious. And Gaten Matarazzo says 18 nominations for Stranger Things. So proud. We're proud of you guys too. Great work, everybody, and looking forward to seeing you guys taking home some hardware on September 17th. All right. We have one other little piece of exciting news that happened while we were in Guatemala. And this was completely unexpected. Addie, what was it?
Season 2 will now be premiering on October 27th, 2017, instead of October 31st.
That's right. So we get it 4 days earlier. How do you feel about that?
Yay, I can go trick-or-treating now.
That is, I forgot about you. That is something you mentioned. You're like, I'm not going trick-or-treating this year. I'm staying home and watching Stranger Things.
Yeah, I'm 14. I'll still go trick-or-treating. I don't care.
You don't care. You just want the candy. Are you going to dress up as a Ghostbuster this year?
Ooh, that'd be a good idea. But I was thinking about, since season 2 comes out earlier than Halloween, maybe I can dress up as someone from season 2.
Maybe you could go as 11.
I already have an Eggo box.
You do?
Yeah, I've saved it for literally like
a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have.
I was like, Mom, can I have the box? Sure. What are you going to do with it? Halloween costume.
Mm-hmm, that's right. That was your idea with that box. I remember.
I should put like a little strap on it and have that be my candy box that people put the candy in.
That's a cool idea. It's a really cool idea.
I only want Eggos though. I don't accept candy.
All right. Well, that will do it for news. Are you
Time
ready?
For the meme of the week.
For the meme of the week.
Meme of the week. I already said it for you. All right. So this week's meme of the week is a picture of Steve with metal over. It's a screenshot of him in the school hallway with a photoshopped metal over his chest, and it says, "Not as big of a jerk as you could have been."
I don't know. He's been a pretty big jerk. Although he did apologize to Nancy in this episode. So that was like the first good thing I've seen him do.
See? Not as big as a jerk as he could have been.
There you go.
But he still is a very big jerk, and I don't like him.
I agree.
Least favorite character. Yeah.
All right. Well, Addie, I think we have made the journey through episode 5. But before we get out of here, we want to remind you of how you can be a part of future episodes by sending in your feedback.
You can call 304-837-2278, and that'll go automatically to voicemail, so you can just, leave your message there. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Stranger Things GSM, and our Twitter is Upside Down GSM, and our Facebook is facebook.com/groups/Stranger Things GSM.
And of course, you can also go to goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Addie, it's so good to have you back. It's so good to be talking about Stranger Things again.
I agree with the Stranger Things part, but...
Yeah, well. All right, well, that means I'm going to get to go finally watch episode 6. So, thanks for listening.
And don't forget to stay strange.